Hello and welcome to this week's video. My name is Anuska Taylor. So great to have you here. Thank you so much to all my new subscribers as well. I really do appreciate it. I say this every week because my channel is really growing and it's really exciting. And I'm so pleased that it's resonating with so many of you. So don't forget to subscribe. And also, if you do enjoy my videos, please give me a thumbs up and please do leave me a comment or ask me a question. Just to preface that question bit by saying that I can't answer specific questions about your voice because I need to see and hear you. But if you've got general questions, I'm very, very happy to answer those questions. And of course, you can always book a private session with me if you want me to listen to you speak, answer your specific questions about your voice. So today's topic is called Don't Lose the Energy in Your Voice. And it's this idea that we want to sustain commitment to the very end of our words, our phrases, our paragraphs, our thoughts. And often what happens when people struggle with clear articulation or projection, or the voice sort of lacks interest, is because it tends to sort of tail off at the end. So they might put the focus and the emphasis at the beginning of the sentence or the word, but then it sort of falls off at the end. This is really common. And actually, when you can start to shift this, you'll find that your voice will project with so much more ease and power. Think about, and I sort of use this example all the time, that you really want to sort of drive the sound through the word to the very, very end. What we tend to do is just put the focus at the start of the word and then let it all fall off. Now, we're not doing this deliberately. Again, a lot of this is psychological, like I don't really want to be heard, etc., etc. So we pull the voice back. And this is one of the ways that we pull the voice back. So I'm going to talk about two specific areas of this. I'm going to talk about troublesome consonants that often sort of fall off the end of words for a lot of people. And again, regardless of language, regardless of accent, you can still be far more intentional with this. And I also just want to say as well, because I have to say this all the time, that when you're training your voice and you're trying to create new neuromuscular patterns in your voice, you have to go to an extreme. Now, I don't mean an extreme in terms of abusing your voice or yelling or screaming or shouting. I don't mean that kind of extreme. But if you've always spoken very quietly and you've always spoken very softly, if you just shift by 2% and you just sort of slightly increase the intensity in your voice, you will just go back. You have to go to the sort of other side of the coin, and then you will find that middle ground. So don't get freaked out by thinking, but I don't want to sound this sort of weird when I pronounce things. You won't. You will find that middle ground that makes sense and feels comfortable in your voice. So it's really, really important. What I find with people is they don't want to go to the extreme. So when they practice, they sort of half practice. They kind of practice a little bit of emphasis, but they're not really going all in. And then they just go back. Now, also, if you follow my work and you know anything about what I do, my work is also about your voice as an outer expression of your inner world. Whether you like this or not, it's true. And so the voice that you are perceiving, the voice that you are sharing with the world, is basically revealing everything that you feel, think, and believe about yourself. Most of the time, it's very unconscious. So when we are allowing the sound to kind of fall off at the end of sentences, phrases, words, paragraphs, we have to really examine, why don't I really fully want to be heard? Why don't I fully want to take up space and really share my thoughts, my feelings, and my ideas? And again, a lot of this comes back to our childhood and what messaging we got around sharing our voice. For most of us, in some shape or form, we were taught to shut our voice down. Obviously, this is going to vary from person to person. And so even if you're someone that's very loud, often a loud voice is a defensive voice as well. So it's just the ego has different ways of protecting us. For some people, it's a loud voice. For some people, it's a quiet voice. So it's got really nothing to do with volume per se or intensity. It's more whether we have the conscious control over our voice and the ability to vary what we're doing. And so everything you want to start to do with your voice is about variety. That starts really from within and really being able to connect to your body, to connect to your heart, connect to what you're talking about, what you're reading about. Because if you're just reading from your head, it's going to be very disconnected. So let's talk about these two areas then. So the first one, as I say, is consonants. So I'm going to focus on 3 specific consonants, because I think these are the biggest sort of problems for people and the ones that can sort of really fall off the wagon, so to speak. But if you can really drive the sound to the end of these words, when they've got these particular consonants, you will find that your voice is far more powerful, far more effortless in terms of projecting. So the first one is an L, and maybe just as an experiment, just say L and just notice what your tongue does. Because often when articulation is mushy or unclear or kind of falls off, it's a problem with the tongue being lazy. And again, we're not blaming your tongue's just doing what it's sort of told to do on an unconscious level. So it's really a tongue that's not really fully activated, really moving, really agile. And so you can say an L without really moving your tongue, L. So I could say Jill, Jill, and not really move my tongue. And that's where a lot of people are. And then you wonder why your voice has no power, you can't project, you have to push your voice, or you're relying on a microphone. Whereas when you can be very intentional with that L, you want the tip of the tongue behind the back top teeth. L, 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 L. So Jill, L. So again, as I said at the start, you have to go to an extreme. So if you're someone that doesn't really move your tongue very much, or your lips or your jaw when you speak, so let's say you say Jill, Jill, which you can say it. If you just slightly shift that, Jill, it makes a little bit of a difference, but actually you're going to have a far more profound transformation if you can be very deliberate. Jill, Jill, move your lips, soften the jaw, bring that tongue forward behind the top teeth. And then you can put it into a sentence. So take sentences with words with an L at the end. Jill bought a kettle to fill a hot water bottle. Now, let's just say this without me really moving my tongue very much. Jill bought a kettle to fill her hot water bottle. Jill bought a kettle to fill her hot water bottle. So you can say it, and probably how a lot of people would say it, but let's be far more intentional now. Bring that tongue forward, soften the jaw, move the lips a little bit, bring them forward a little bit. Jill bought a kettle to fill her hot water bottle. Now, when you first start doing this, it's going to feel a little bit awkward, a little bit like, am I really going to speak like this? The more you practice this, the more the tongue gets used to moving and the jaw gets used to softening and the lips get used to moving, the more fluid this will be. But initially, it's probably going to feel quite clumsy, clunky, and awkward. And that's all okay. That's fine. Just be okay with it being a bit awkward for a while. So Jill bought a kettle to fill her hot water bottle. So you can then start to get some fluency in it, but you want to make sure you've got that intentional articulation first, ensuring that you articulate to the ends of the words, and then you can speed it up. What a lot of people will do is they'll just speed up without thinking about the articulation. So I say this all the time, you can speak fast and clear, but it requires more skill, it requires more flexibility and agility in the voice. And so for most speakers in particular that aren't trained, they don't have that agility in their voice. So when they speak fast, they lose that clarity and then it's just lost. But we're talking specifically here about the ends of sentences, the ends of words, the ends of any kind of sound or phrase that you're making. So really focus on the ends of those words and then drive the sound forward to the very end of that sentence. So another one is a T, T. And again, the tongue needs to be brought forward. So there is a theme here that the tongue, generally in a lot of us, is quite lazy. In a lot of accents, the tongue is retracted. There's our sound. So the tongue is actually more comfortable retracting than moving forward. But really for effortless power and projection and clarity in the voice, you've got to start bringing the tongue more intentionally forward, regardless of accent, regardless of language. So T is another one, T, today, I'm going on a boat. So what we might do in that is I'm going on a boat, and we just let the end of the word boat fall off. So then it's like the sound just goes, I'm going on a boat, and it falls off. So I'm going on a boat. So we drive the sound forward to the very, very end of the words. And particularly, as I say, with these consonants like L's and T's, where the tendency is for, in a lot of people, the tongue to be quite lazy, doesn't really want to move very much. And so it just stops moving. And so the sound just sort of disappears. So can you keep that energy going through every single word, through every single sentence, through every single paragraph? And I promise you, initially it might feel like a lot of work. It might feel, oh my God, this is so, I have to really think and etc. But I promise you, the more you do this, the more natural this will be. It will flow more, it will sound more natural. And as a byproduct for you as the speaker, your voice will just feel so much better. You won't feel like you're pushing your voice out to be heard. Because when you drive the sound through to the very end of the word, think about you're driving those sound waves forward. And that's what we want. We want the voice out. A lot of people are pulling the voice back. So if you're saying, I'm going on a boat, I'm going on a boat, we're pulling the voice back. So I'm going on a boat, and we're bringing the voice forward, but we've got to be intentional. So the last one is NG, like the end of sing, sing. And again, this can fall off as well for a lot of people. So thinking, for example, if I was saying the word thinking, you might say thinking. And you can hear very quickly how the voice just goes, thinking. And you lose that energy, you lose that drive, you lose that power in the voice. Thinking, drive the sound forward to the very end of that NG, thinking. And let's put this in a sentence. I'm thinking of taking singing lessons. I'm thinking of taking singing lessons. So if I didn't put the energy to the very end of that word or each of the words or the sentence, I'm thinking of taking singing lessons. So I can say it, and you would understand me. You might have to kind of listen quite hard. I'm thinking of taking singing lessons. You can say it, but you can imagine if you were presenting or talking to a group of people, whether it's 2 people, 10 people, 1,000 people, that is not going to be very easy for people to hear. So really drive the sound forward to the very, very end of every single word. I'm thinking of taking singing lessons. But as I've said already, but I can't say this enough, go to an extreme, and I promise you, you'll find a middle ground where it's more fluid and more natural. But you can't go there from a really breathy, light, quiet voice and then think you can just shift it by like 1% and then your voice will change. You've got to go to the other side of the coin. I'm thinking of taking singing lessons. Really move your lips, your tongue, soften the jaw, and then notice the difference in how powerful and driven your voice is and how much more energy and commitment you have to your words. So that's the first one. So the L, T, and NG, le, te, on, really important that you drive the sound forward to the ends of words, particularly with those consonants. So the final part of this is then how you sort of intonate at the end of those sentences. So for example, I'm thinking of taking singing lessons. Do you always go down with your pitch? I'm thinking of taking singing lessons. I'm thinking of taking singing lessons. Or do you have a sort of slight rise in pitch and then come down? So once again, we want variety. That's going to make the voice far more interesting. And it's going to be more interesting for you as well than if every time you get to the end of a sentence or an idea, it's dilla dilla da, dilla dilla da, da, in terms of the intonation. So again, we don't want to just be randomly intonating. We want it to make sense with what we're saying, but can you add variety? You may be someone that always goes up at the end of sentences. I lived in Australia for a long time, and very common in Australia for that kind of upward inflection at the ends of sentences. So everything kind of sounds like a question, which is fine if it is a question, but can you start to vary the ends of your sentences and then drive that sound forward so you can maintain that energy? And it's just going to make everything so much more engaging and interesting. And importantly for your voice, when you vary that intonation and that pitch at the end of sentences, it's actually really healthy for your voice than if you always do the same thing. So if you always go, I'm having singing lessons. Duh. And so you can lose the energy very easily. I'm having singing lessons. So can you get the energy in the voice? And can you vary it depending on what you're saying? Bring some melody, bring some energy into your voice, and it's going to be far more engaging. I'm going to put the kettle on. So play around with this, because again, if you're not used to bringing this energy into your words, it's probably going to sound a little bit over the top. Your ego will probably resist this if you've always pulled your voice back and you've always gone down at the end of sentences, or even if you always go up at the end of sentences. But you can actually go up at the end of sentences but still lack that intentional articulation. So it doesn't really matter, but what you want to do is bring the energy to the very, very end of everything that you're saying, and use that intonation, use that pitch variation to kind of add more interest and color and energy to your voice. So I hope that that has helped. I'd love to know how you go and if you found this useful, and have a practice. And I say this all the time as well, but don't rely on what you hear in your head. Record yourself, watch yourself, listen back, because what you hear in your head is not what anyone else hears. And what you'll probably find is actually when you listen back, it's not half as over the top as you think. It's actually probably way more engaging and interesting than you think. So please do record, listen back, watch yourself, and notice and listen. And also then if you record yourself, you can see, is my jaw moving? Are my lips moving? Is my tongue doing anything? Or is it just pulling back in my mouth? So everything, we want to bring energy to the body, to the voice. And that is going to make such a difference in the amplification, in the power, in your ability to project with ease without feeling like you've got to kind of the voice out, or rely on a mic, because mics are great, but you don't want to rely on it in place of vocal technique. Get your technique down, and then when you add a mic, it's just so easy. So let me know how you go. And if you do want some support with this, you can always book a private session. I've got a Reclaim Your Voice private session, which is a 60-minute coaching session. There's a link below. You can also book a 30-minute voice discovery call. That is more of a exploration. That's more of a insight call. It's less of a coaching call. And it's really for people that are serious about private voice coaching, want some insight into their voice, want some feedback, and want to know the best way forward and how I can support you. But if you purely want the coaching session, just book the 60-minute Reclaim Your Voice. You will not regret it. It's just one of these things that you just have no idea what kind of goldmine you're sitting on when you've never done any voice training and you've got no idea about what's even possible with your voice. So I hope to see some of you soon. Just a very quick comment before I go. I have had some issues with my website. So if you've been trying to kind of get onto my website or contact me, probably best to go through LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook at the moment, because I will see your messages if you message me through one of those. Again, all the links are below. So thank you so much, and I'll see you next week on next week's video.